Hey, so we're going to talk about this real fear that stops men from any commitment towards you. And I know this can be a little bit painful, but bear with me. I think this will make a huge difference in your life. So many of you recognize that men will approach you from the perspective of the desiring of companionship, the desiring of connection, the desiring of physical intimacy, also known as sex. But what about commitment? Well, this is a big topic to discuss because these days we see so many couples experiencing casual relationships and not serious relationships. And we're going to go through several layers of commitment to determine if you're, in fact, in a serious relationship. So let's look at these levels of commitment. And why do so many people find themselves in casual relationships, sometimes feeling used because it's not reaching a level of growth, a level of seriousness, a level of genuine commitment? So the three levels of commitment, a commitment, according to a book I'm about to write, and can't give you the title yet of the book. The three levels of commitment: level one is monogamy and exclusivity. Now, a lot of people, when they're in the beginning phases of dating and they are going to form a sexual relationship with one another, I would say it's fairly safe to say, and I think it's fairly safe to or desire a level of monogamy and exclusivity. I think if you haven't agreed to monogamy and exclusivity before you're physically intimate, then you better make sure of it after you're physically intimate, because monogamy is basically agreeing to only sleep with one person at a time. And technically, you can have sex with someone on the first date and never see them again, so they don't have to commit to monogamy. But certainly, if you're going to have regular sex, you commit to monogamy. Why do we commit to exclusivity? Because it's not very much fun to be having physical intimacy with someone only to find out that they're actively still seeking somebody else in their life. So exclusivity basically means agreeing to exploring a relationship together. But what is a relationship? See, we can use the word relationship, but what does that mean? What does that mean to you? What does that mean to the person that you're dating? But more importantly, what does commitment mean? Well, the agreement for monogamy exclusivity is one layer of commitment. Another layer of commitment is what I call teammates. Teammates. In other words, you are beginning to blend your lives together. You're beginning to merge your lives together. You're beginning to integrate your lives together in a teammate fashion. Now, I'll be candid with you. Very few relationships ever reach this point of teammates because they find themselves in a casual relationship. They just find themselves in the entertainment of a relationship, all the good experiences of the relationship. See, and it's certainly understandable because a lot of people in midlife, and that's the demographic I speak to, which I say midlife is after baby making years and before retirement. So a lot of people in this age demographic are rather gun shy of any serious commitment. Roughly about 75% of singles over 45 years old are divorced. And I will tell you that divorce is a pretty radically traumatic experience that causes many people to be gun shy. But in a few minutes, I'm going to tell you about one gigantic reason why so many men at midlife are gun shy about all serious commitment, serious commitment. So let's come back to, we notice most people find themselves at level one of commitment. They'll agree to monogamy exclusivity, but they aren't actively integrating into each other's lives. This is where, hey, I need a ride to the airport. Will you take me to the airport? Hey, we've got a big party to go to tonight, and I forgot to pick up my dry cleaning. Will you go do that? Maybe teamwork is how you do chores when you're staying at each other's home. Maybe it's how you cook together. Maybe it's taking turns planning and paying for dates. Whatever teamwork means to you, reaching the second level of commitment starts moving you forward into some level of seriousness. And I said in a few minutes ago, the vast majority of couples today find themselves in a casual relationship, not a serious relationship. But the third level of commitment, this is once you've integrated into each other's lives. It's It's that space of merging with one another. It's a space of building teamwork, is reaching a level of all in. There's a reason why the wedding vow says for richer, for poorer, sickness and health. It's a level of all in. I am all in. I am going to take care of you. Take care of you. So we're going to dive into that in a second, but I want to address something really quickly that I've seen in TikTok videos. And this is an area that so many men are sensitive of, even before you ever go on a first date, because this narrative is being pumped into the social media airwaves. And no wonder men are sensitive to the following. But there are a group of people out there sharing with women that a high value man must have the 3 6s, the 3 6s. Now, I don't mean this from a biblical sense, as in the movie The Omen, but the 3 6s stand for 6 foot tall, 6-figure income, and 6-inch penis. That's what the 3 6s represent. And this is a very sensitive subject to men, given that, less than 15% of the male population is over 6 feet tall. And less than 20% of the population makes over 6 figures. And the fact is, the average penis size is about 5.5 inches. So right there, a significant percentage of men are not meeting the minimum threshold women are being told out in the dating marketplace. And we have a significant number of men who feel disheartened by what they witness out there. And I'm just here to say that men are rather sensitive to this. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of young men in particular are not even putting themselves in the dating marketplace, because they aren't going to measure up to the expectations out there. A friend of mine once said, his quote is, "Expectations is the mother of disaster, and desperation is her twin sister." Sadly, we have some ridiculous expectations on certain preferences. And yet it's understandable why some people might want them. But the whole of a person is much more than these 3 6s. And yet one of the 3 6s that I mentioned requires some attention. So I want to share the story of a dear friend of mine who has been in a relationship for 10 years. And it's not casual. It's a serious relationship. They operate as teammates with one another. But his girlfriend brought up, wanted to end the relationship because it's not going to the next level of all in. And he shared with me this fear. And this fear is a fear represented by so many men out in the dating marketplace. And the fear is, in his particular case, he doesn't own a home. He doesn't have enough money to retire. And by the way, he's 60 years old. I should point this out. He doesn't own a home. He doesn't have money to retire, or doesn't have enough money to retire. And he feels that he's going to have to work until he dies. He's going to have to work until he dies. And he was very candid with me, saying, I don't feel I can financially support another person. And I will tell you that a significant number of men feel exactly the same way. I can raise my hand and feel the exact same way. See, all in means I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of you. And to some degree, this one particular gigantic fear is I don't have the resources to take care of you. And this is felt by so many men. And as I said earlier, less than 80% or less than 20% of the population makes 6 figures. Less than 20% of the population has 1 year in savings should they lose their job. Do you realize that 80% of people live paycheck to paycheck? 80% of the population doesn't have the financial resources to support themselves. Now, let me reframe that. They might have the resources to support themselves, but don't have the resources to support another person. And so I want to just draw attention to this legitimate fear of why many men might not be able to reach that point of being what has been affectionately known as the provider protector. So it's no wonder, because very few couples actually talk about money in the dating process. So it's coincidental that I was speaking to an old client of mine today, someone I've known for 14 years. And she was telling me the story about a man that she went out with or has gone out with a few times. Now, she did a background check on him. And before the background check, or during the background check, she found out that he had a bankruptcy and, or actually 2 bankruptcies. So she was rather concerned. But what floored me is what he said to initiate their first date. Okay. Now he's unaware that she knows this about him. Let me repeat that. He's unaware she knows this about him, but he stated the following to her, which I thought was rather fascinating. And he said, I would like to start our getting to know you. And they spent a number of hours on the phone speaking because there's a little bit of distance involved between them. I don't know exactly, a few hours of distance. He happens to live right next door to her sister, or not next door, but relatively close, but a few hours away. So they spent quite a bit of time talking on the phone. And during the conversation, he said, I would like to start getting to know you by we put each other in the friend zone. We put each other in the friend zone, meaning we start this relationship as friends. And within that dynamic, we split the cost of seeing each other in the early stages as we are building trust with one another, as we get to know one another. And what's interesting is she agreed because he was very sincere in the way he brought this up. And so now keep in mind, she knows that he had a bankruptcy in his past, okay? But he started the conversation, let's start off as friends and let's split everything. Now, there was a reason for this, and she asked him on the second date. And he shared the story of losing his money in the market crash of 2008. And during that time, he had to reorganize and he went through bankruptcy. And then during that time, he was going through a divorce shortly thereafter. Did I say he had 2 bankruptcies? Maybe it's 1. I can't remember. Now please forgive me. I don't know why I had 2 in my head, but he was going through a divorce and there was also some financial issues that came about. And when he shared this from a very sincere place, when he shared how he's been rebuilding his life and he's been putting money away for retirement. So he actually has a retirement fund. And this is a man in his early 50s, I believe. She understood where he was coming from. She was able to recognize like his idea of let's build trust with one another before we get into the romantic level of the relationship, so he could share something that was very sensitive to him related to money, because he's hyper aware that this is a gigantic stumbling block in relationships. Do you realize that roughly 50% of all divorces cite money as one of the primary problems? And since we have this grand expectation that men are the provider protector, since we have this grand expectation that men are supposed to pay for the entire process of getting to know you, he wanted to be very upfront with her. And he made this request. Now, she didn't have to agree. I suspect, and he even openly admitted some women didn't agree to this for the reasons he laid out. But what she appreciated most about him, he was sincere. He was honest. He was speaking his truth. And he's feeling rather bit of shame around this. You see, a lot of men feel shame in this area of not having the financial resources to be able to fully take care of someone. And I can speak from personal experience. In fact, when she was sharing the story about him, I mirrored a lot of that experience. Folks, I went through a gigantic emotional crisis almost 20 years ago when I lost my high-end corporate job and I got wiped out in the market crash of 2008 and 9. And I can tell you that I've had to spend the last 15 years rebuilding my life. And I'm not where I would have been had the market crash not happened. I would not be in the same place. Actually, I wouldn't be in this place of self-development. So for me, it was a blessing. But why I'm sharing this with you is I can empathize with how he's feeling. I've heard women say, I fear being a nurse or a purse. meaning I fear dating someone older that I might have to take care of, or I have to financially take care of, or physically take care of. Let's face it, for those people in their mid 50s and 60s, the big gigantic fear is taking care of someone. And for a lot of men, this is a big gigantic fear. Now, why is this important to know? Because you know what? I'm a believer of having a bit of grace, having a bit of compassion when we judge people. I've had women say to me, oh my God, he made me pay for my valet on a date. What a cheapskate. You know what? That hurts me to hear that kind of judgment. There is a good reason why most people do what they do. And when we actually, like in this particular case, when he shared his truth with her, when he said, let's start in the friend zone so we can build trust with one another, it builds a more solid foundation because you're starting from the heart and not from the grand expectation of romance and so forth. So understand that a lot of men have this real fear centered around the capacity to take care of someone from a financial or resource based. And this might be the reason why some men, in the case of the person I was speaking of earlier, couldn't fully commit to his partner or to the woman he'd been serious with, because he was afraid, or he is afraid, of taking care of her. Folks, is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know if it is. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to follow me on Instagram, get all the books I recommend, all listed below.